magma up to the surface, creating lava and volcanoes. And that movement has created this mountain range. So the same point that is forming the big island of Hawaii today, at one point in the past, formed the island of Kauai. This portion of the island was formed during the first period of volcanic activity that this island saw. Happened about 5 million years ago. Since then, the tectonic plate has shifted away, causing the volcanoes here to go dormant and then extinct. And ever since then, water has been hard at work carving out the landscape to create this scene that we see today. Now, speaking of water, if we look over to our left, we can see the Waimea River. Waimea River runs through the Waimea Canyon out into the Pacific Ocean in the town of Waimea. In Waimea town, you can catch the Waimea Canyon Road, which will take you up along the rim of the canyon, up into the Waimea Canyon State Park, and on into the Kokee State Park. Along the route, there are numerous lookouts, different points where you can stop and get different vantages of the canyon and some of the prominent features within it. Once you get up into Kokee, there are numerous hiking trails that you can explore various parts of the canyon, the Alakai Swamp, as well as the Napali coastline, so you can get out on different ridges along the Napali coast. Check those out. Now, within the canyon, there are 3 spurs or ventricles that extend into the main body of the canyon. This first one that we're going to check out is called Wailai. And here we can really see what a single stream or river can do in affecting the landscape. Now, heading upstream through Wailai, we are going to be cutting through a portion of the Alakai Swamp. The Alakai Swamp is the highest elevation swamp in the world and comprises the central highland portion of the island. The Alakai is pinched between the Waimea Canyon behind us, the Napali coastline, which we'll be seeing in a few minutes, and Waialeale crater. So that's off on the east side of the island, and should be our final stop along the tour today. The Alakai acts as something of a savings account for the watershed along the island. So a lot of the streams and rivers and even some of the waterfalls on the island are fed by water flowing out of the Alakai Swamp. The second of the 3 ventricles of the Waimea Canyon, and the deepest of the 3, is known as Kauai, and we are crossing it right now. Alright, this brings us to the final ventricle, known as Po'omau, which we're going to head downstream through and head around for Waipo'o Falls. So as I mentioned, there are numerous hiking trails throughout the Waimea Canyon and Kokee State Parks. And one of the most popular trails up here is the Canyon Trail. which will take you to the top of the Waipo'o Falls, which is a 3-section waterfall, comprised of an upper 20-foot section, a middle 100-plus foot section, and a lower 400-foot drop. Now, it is a prominent feature within the canyon. It's visible from a number of the lookouts. The trail itself won't give you the best view of the waterfall, however, it will get you right up close, or right up to it. In just a moment, we'll be coming around the bend, and Waipo'o will be off on our right-hand side. The trail itself to get you there is 1.8 miles long, and it extends down from the rim of the canyon to the falls, and then back up again. So total distance is 3.6 miles to get you there and back again. Here on our right, we can now see Waipo'o Falls, and the tail end of the trail is on the open ridge top just to our left of the waterfall. Now, in just a moment, we're going to be crossing over the rim of the canyon into the Pu'ukapele Forest Reserve. Before we do, though, let me point out this ridgeline directly at our 12 o'clock, directly in front of us, that has a single tree sticking out of it. That is the main lookout for the canyon. It'll take you about 20 minutes from the town of Waimea to get there, about 45 minutes from Poipu, and depending on the time of day that you're heading up here, about 2 hours from Princeville. Alright, as we cross over into the Pu'ukapele Forest Reserve, we can see the island of Ni'ihau, 17 miles off the west coast of Kauai. It is a privately owned island. It's owned by the Robinson family. It is part of Kauai County, but it's often referred to as the Forbidden Island. And just on the right side, we can see that sort of pyramid-shaped portion, and that is actually a separate landmass called Lihue Rock. Between Ni'ihau and ourselves, along the coastline there, that large facility is PMRF, or the Pacific Missile Range Facility, also known as Barking Sands. PMRF is a strategic defensive location for the U.S. It's also a missile testing facility. And they sit smack dab in the middle of the longest uninterrupted stretch of white sandy beach throughout the entire state of Hawaii. 12 miles long and extends from Keikaha, the last real town on the west side, all the way around the western point to Polihali, which is the official end of the road on the west side of the island. Polihali then butts up right into the Napali coastline, which is going to be our next stop along the tour today. The Napali coastline comprises 17 miles of rugged coastline, made up of sea level valleys, broken up by 3,000 and 4,000 foot cliffs. Napali itself translates to the cliffs and is a pretty appropriate name for this area. Off on our left, we can see these white globes sticking up on the ridge line here. This is Makaha Ridge and is the radar center for PMRF. So they work in conjunction with each other. Alright, so in just a moment here we're going to be breaking out over the top of Nu'ololo Aina. Nu'ololo Aina is the first major valley you'd come to, heading from the west side. Alright, and coming up on our right will be the entirety of the Napali coast stretched out. Looking down to our right, we can see a little beach down there on the other side of that ridge, and if you look closely as we come around here, you may see the arch connecting two sections of beach coming underneath this ridgeline sticking out into the ocean here. So these are the beaches associated with Honopu Valley. Honopu is this next large valley coming up on our right here, which we'll peek our heads into. Now, Honopu Valley is extremely difficult to access. You can't really get to it from up above, and the beaches do back up into sheer cliffs. So not too many people make it into this valley. Those that do are typically helicoptered in and are working. They work with native seabird species here due to the fact that Hawaii was extremely remote and isolated for most of its history. The seabirds that call this island or these islands home have evolved to nest on the ground primarily, and so they are highly susceptible today to predation by animals such as cats and rats and even pigs. Now, the folks that come back here are working, as I mentioned, with the seabirds and largely with the Newell's shearwater. So they are a highly endangered seabird species. In Honopu Valley, we can really see how water will affect its environment and landscape. This valley, as all of these valleys, have been carved away by rain and wind and the streams and waterfalls that flow through them. Now, separating Honopu Valley from Kalalau Valley, the largest of the Napali Coast valleys, is a section what we call the cathedrals. So this section of razorback ridges and towering spires was awe-inspiring to the degree that it earned itself this name, the cathedrals. Now, down to our left is Kalalau Beach. So the cathedrals are the backdrop for Kalalau, the Kalalau Beach, that is. And the Kalalau Beach is the end point, the termination point for the Napali Coast or Kalalau Trail, which extends 11 miles from Ke'e Beach along the coastline down here to the beach at Kalalau. Now, permits are required to hike this portion of the trail. They need to be acquired in advance, and I believe you can get them through Hawaii.gov. This brings us to Kalalau Valley. Kalalau is the largest of the Napali Coast valleys. There are two lookouts at the top of the Waimea Canyon Road that look down into this valley. And the first one is really iconic view of the valley. It's shown up in countless advertisements, postcards, brochures. And the second one is the trailhead for the Alakai Swamp and the Pihea Trail. So, and it is the actual end of the Waimea Canyon Road. This next large valley is called Hanakoa. Beyond Hanakoa, it's going to be Hanakapiai. Hanakapiai is the first major valley you would come to along the Napali Coast Trail. And for the vast majority of the 750,000 people that hike some portion of the Napali Coast Trail every year, Hanakapiai is going to be their destination. So, from Ke'e, It's approximately 2 miles along the trail to get you to Hanakapiai Beach. And an additional 2 miles inland will get you to the Hanakapiai Falls. No permits are required for hiking that section of the trail. However, these days you do need a parking permit to park out at KA.